Good evening once again. I have to say when we switch on the recording. And today we are turning our attention to section A. ठीक है. The whole idea in a section A question is very different as compared to the section B questions because it's very comprehensive. It's quite in depth. One development that I have seen, like other every other paper, the complexity of the question or the level of detail in the question is going down. तो अर्लियर ना सेक्शन ए का जो क्वेश्चन वन होता था, the exhibits only would run into 5 to 6 pages. Now they wind it up in 3.5, 4 pages. So somewhere the level of detail in the question is going down. But what I have observed is their approach to checking has become stricter over time, if we can say that. I have observed this pattern across all the papers. So ऐसा नहीं है कि this time it is getting strict and I want you to get worried. Please don't. Otherwise वो पकड़ के बैठ जाएंगे कि अरे strict checking है. It's been happening and you have already cleared different papers under strict checking. So it's not as if ये कुछ अलग हो रहा है. ठीक है. Now today I will not focus so much on the presentation. I will focus more on content. ठीक है. फिर एक किसी और क्वेश्चन में द सेकंड क्वेश्चन दैट वील डू, इन दैट आई विल फोकस ऑन द प्रेजेंटेशन पार्ट. एंड नाउ यू कैन रेफर टू ऑल द रिकॉर्डिंग्स. मैंने आपको कुछ रिकॉर्डिंग्स अवेलेबल करवाए हैं, राइट? नाउ यू कैन रेफर टू दोज रिकॉर्डिंग्स. उसका अलग से इन द ड्राइव फोल्डर आई हैव मेड अ सेपरेट फोल्डर. Within the AAA folder, there is September 25 का question solving. So all questions are arranged there. You can refer that particular sheet. अब ये देखो. नाउ ट्रिपल ए का क्वेश्चन जो है, इट्स एन एक्सटेंसिव डिटेल्ड क्वेश्चन. यूजिंग ऑल एग्जिबिट्स, इवेल्युएट द सिग्निफिकेंट बिजनेस रिस्क टू बी कंसिडर्ड इन प्लानिंग द ऑडिट ऑफ हार्ट ग्रुप. 8 मार्क्स का क्वेश्चन है. अच्छा, यहाँ पे ना सर्टन थिंग्स दैट यू विल हैव टू पिक अप. यूजिंग ऑल एग्जिबिट्स क्या करना है? बिजनेस रिस्क बताना है. ठीक है. देन एग्जिबिट 1 to 3 लेके इवेल्युएट एंड प्रायोरिटाइज द सिग्निफिकेंट रिस्क ऑफ मटेरियल मिसस्टेटमेंट टू बी कंसिडर्ड इन प्लानिंग द ग्रुप ऑडिट. You will need to determine and apply an appropriate materiality threshold in your briefing notes. You are not required to consider risk of material misstatement relating to acquisition of Morton Company at this point because it will be dealt with in Part C. ये 8 मार्क का रिस्क आ गया, 12 मार्क का रिस्क आ गया, 20 मार्क का रिस्क हो गया. The group was formed during the year with the parent company Hart acquiring its first subsidiary. Therefore, this is the first year that group will prepare CFS. Using Exhibit 4, justify why the acquisition of Morton Company and goodwill arising on acquisition have been identified as significant risk of material misstatement, and design the principal audit procedures which should be included in the audit plan in relation to goodwill arising on acquisition of Morton Company. You should consider all components of management's goodwill calculation in your justification and procedures. So, एसबीआर में जो गुडविल आप कैलकुलेट करते हो इन कंसोलिडेटेड फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट, सेम आपको यहाँ पे करना है. दिस पार्ट इज फॉर 5 मार्क्स. Why acquisition of Morton and goodwill arising on acquisition have been identified as a significant risk of material misstatement. तो देखो 8 मार्क का रिस्क है, 12 मार्क का रिस्क है, 5 मार्क का रिस्क है. 25 marks out of 40 technical marks are risk. 7 marks are for a procedure. And using Exhibit 3, discuss Broadway and Company's responsibilities in relation to group's non-compliance with laws and regulations in relation to refurbishment of historical buildings without permission. ये अलग पार्ट है. They have specifically told you to use Exhibit 3. 40 technical marks में से 25 technical marks are on risk, 7 on procedure, 8 on some other aspect. You see how important risk is. टुडे आई एम नॉट गोइंग टू स्पेंड टाइम, एज आई टोल्ड यू, मैं आज प्रेजेंटेशन पे टाइम नहीं लगाऊंगा. आज मैं द टेक्निकल पार्ट पे मेरा फोकस रहेगा. ठीक है. नाउ it is 1st of July 2005. You are a manager in the audit department of Broadway. Now one good thing in AAA questions is ना, ये जो syntax है वो हमेशा fixed होता है. In the sense it is always going to be 1st of July. You are always going to be a manager in the audit department, responsible for the audit of Hart Group for the year ended 30th September 2005. The group, a non-listed entity, owns and operates 50 theaters which stage third-party theater productions including musicals and plays. ठीक है। द फॉलोइंग एग्जिबिट्स प्रोवाइड इंफॉर्मेशन रेलेवेंट टू द क्वेश्चन। पार्टनर्स ईमेल, बैकग्राउंड इन्फो, मीटिंग नोट्स, गुडविल कैलकुलेशन। मैंने बोला ना, ट्रिपल ए इज मोर एस बी आर देन एस बी आर। वी हैव सीन शेयर बेस्ड पेमेंट, वी हैव सीन फेयर वैल्यू, वी हैव सीन एवरीथिंग। अब देखो यहाँ पे गुडविल आ गया। यू हैव टू रिस्पॉन्ड टू द इंस्ट्रक्शंस। You, this is an email from the partner, it will always be an email from the partner। ठीक है। आपको मेल का डेट है 1 जुलाई। ईयर एंड डेट है फॉर ग्रुप फाइनेंशियल्स 30 September 2005। You need to start planning the audit of Hart Group for the year ending 30th September. And to help with this, I have provided you with some relevant info. I met with the finance director yesterday to discuss a number of matters, including some recent business development. When determining materiality, please use revenue as your basis, as this is a key focus for investors and providers of finance। तो आपको क्लियरली बताया गया है कि मटीरियलिटी हैज टू बी ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ रेवेन्यू, तो दिमाग लगाने का जरूरत नहीं है। चेक करो, इज इट अ न्यू ऑडिट क्लाइंट? डज नॉट लुक लाइक इट टू मी। चेक करो फिर भी एक बार। डज दिस अपीयर लाइक अ न्यू ऑडिट क्लाइंट टू यू?
No.
नो। और इज इट अ लिस्टेड एंटिटी? बिकॉज लिस्टेड एंटिटी होगा तो नेचुरली रिस्क ऑफ मटेरियल मिसस्टेटमेंट इज, मतलब वहां पे इश्यूज ज्यादा होते हैं आपके लाइफ में। करेक्ट। इज दिस अ लिस्टेड एंटिटी? नो। So far I haven't found anything which will push me in the direction of setting the materiality at the lower end of the spectrum so far। आगे हो सकता है depending on the other information that I read। ठीक है। So don't come to a conclusion yet। ठीक है। अब इफ यू कीप इट एट द लोअर एंड ऑफ द स्पेक्ट्रम, दैट इज बिकॉज इट इज अ हाई रिस्क क्लाइंट, या डिटेक्शन रिस्क ज्यादा है, इनहेरेंट रिस्क ज्यादा है, जो भी इशू हो सकता है आपका। ठीक है। बट वो बाद में आएंगे। सी, मटीरियल materiality will have to be discussed only when you are discussing either risk of material misstatement या audit risk। first part is business risk। business risk के टाइम आपको ये डिस्कस नहीं करना है। that is not the focus of your answer। now I want you to now I want us to go through a technical article that ACCA has published specifically with respect to business risk part। ठीक है। so let's open that and see कि what are the guidance points released by ACCA। ठीक है, एक बार वो देखते हैं and then of course we'll be framing answer to this question। ये देखो, business risk ISA 315 explains that understanding the entity's objective, strategy, and business model helps the auditor to understand the entity at a strategic level and to understand the business risk that the entity faces। Understanding of the business risks that have an effect on financial statements assists the auditor consequently in risk of material misstatement also। Business risk as a risk resulting from significant conditions, events, circumstances, actions, or inactions that could adversely affect an entity's ability to achieve its objectives and execute its strategies, or from the setting of inappropriate objectives and strategies। Think about it like this: anything which might lead to closure of the business, anything which might harm your reputation, anything which is stopping you from achieving your objectives is a business risk। धंधा बंद हो रहा है, is it harming your reputation? Is it affecting your sales or cost or whatever it is? अगर it is suddenly leading to that, for example, there is an overseas supplier and Donald Trump has imposed tariff, so that is not a risk of material misstatement, but tariffs will make things expensive, that is a business risk। तो उस एंगल से आपको सोचना है। ठीक है। Candidates are not required to have industry knowledge because all the data will be given to you। Should focus on the risk arising from information and not speculate on additional risks। Then, in order to evaluate effectively, candidates will initially need to identify the risk arising from the information and illustrate the impact of the risk। तो risk, see, identification of risk मतलब that heading which you are giving, that is risk identification। उसके बाद one two line thing should be enough to identify the risk, identify and describe। don't talk about the impact आपको next पैरा में बात करना है। ठीक है। Candidates should make use of specific points that are relevant to the client in the question than generic पे मार्क नहीं मिलेगा। Should expand on the issue in order to fully evaluate a point। There needs to be an assessment of the scale of the risk in the context of the scenario। ठीक है. In the context of AAA paper, it is essential that candidates assess the significant business risk. These should be assessed as those issues which are medium to high likelihood of occurrence and impact. So, chances of occurrence and the impact, dono should be on the medium to higher end of the spectrum. Business risk in the AAA exam are areas of uncertain occurrence and outcome, not factual statements of something which has already happened and therefore is already quantified in the scenario. ठीक है. अब ये विनबेरी कंपनी के इसमें दिया है. विनबेरी कंपनी आई हैव सॉल्व इन द प्लूटस एलएमएस पे आपको वो मिलेगा. ठीक है. यहाँ पे आई वांट अस टू अंडरस्टैंड ये सिनेरियो में हम कैसे अप्लाई करेंगे. ठीक है. अब इधर आइए. Hart Company, the parent, owns a number of theaters across the country. Each theater is a venue for hire. Third party theater production companies, which are responsible for the live performance and associated staff, pay a fee to hire the theater for a specific period of time. ठीक है. The other services provided by each theater vary and include marketing services, technical assistance, and ticket sales. The group's theaters are mainly old buildings which are historical sites with protected status. Like अपना मुंबई में नहीं है, साउथ बॉम्बे में हेरिटेज बिल्डिंग्स, हेरिटेज स्ट्रक्चर्स यू कैनॉट डिमोलिश दोज बेसिकली. Permission from the appropriate regulatory authority to refurbish the building will only be given if the historical features are retained. In the past, regulatory authority has taken legal action where these rules have not been adhered to. Many of these buildings are in a poor state of repair and require substantial investment to maintain safe and appropriate access for all visitors. Anything that you can, when you look at this background information, क्या आ रहा है आपके मन में? So, if the building is not renewed or if the repair and renovation work is not done, do you think it will become unsafe for the visitors? Right? So, and if it becomes unsafe for visitors, then you might not be able to carry out plays there. वो एक issue हो सकता है. ठीक है. So make a rough note of that. See, making rough notes is very important. Make a rough note. This could be a point, could not be a point. That is for later. ठीक है. Then the group is owned by venture capitalists who provide a substantial amount of debt financing. Total debt financing available to the group is 500 million, of which 458 million has been used. 500 million sanctioned है, 458 million has been used. 90% of the debt capacity you have already utilized. As such, the group has high levels of gearing and interest expenses are significant. These debts are secured on the properties owned by the group. There are also a number of covenants attached to the building. The covenants cover several financial KPIs in relation to liquidity, revenue growth, and operating profitability, including a requirement that the operating profit margin does not fall below 6%. Where covenants are breached, the group has 2 years from the date of breach to rectify the issue or the debt will be required to be repaid in full. ये कहीं और हुआ है ना ऐसा ही? एक सेक्शन बी क्वेश्चन में हुआ था ना, सेम सिचुएशन था, राइट? परसेंटेज अलग होगा, बट यू आर नॉट सपोज टू रीपे द अमाउंट इमीडिएटली, बट इफ द कॉवेनेंट गेट्स ब्रीच यू विल गेट 2 years टू रेक्टिफाई, अदरवाइज यू विल हैव टू रीपे द एंटायर लोन अमाउंट. ठीक है. दे हैव नॉट स्पेसिफाइड कि see there are multiple covenants: liquidity, revenue growth, and operating profitability. ठीक है. And one of the more important ones is that operating profit margin does not fall below 6%. ठीक है. Now meeting notes देखो. Make a note of the debt covenant related part. Quickly make a note कि if it falls below 6% then and if you don't rectify it within 2 years आपको पूरा का पूरा लोन वापस करना पड़ेगा. ठीक है. मेंशन करो उसको. In brief, don't write too much, just write it in brief. Now, do one thing. लिख लिया? Check. See the quantified covenant here is only operating profit margin, nothing else. बाकी के they have said that there are other covenants, but quantification is only for operating profit margin. ठीक है. Check calculate operating profit margin for 30th September 2004 and 30th September 2005. करो तो कितना आता है बताओ.
Sir, 6.5% and 6.3%.
ओके. लास्ट ईयर इट वाज कितना है? 26/397. 26/397, 6.5% and 28/446. ठीक है. वी आर वेरी क्लोज टू द डेंजर मार्क, इफ यू हैव ऑब्जर्व्ड. सो इधर गड़बड़ होने का चांस है. लॉस बिफोर इनकम टैक्सेस, हाँ. देन टोटल असेट्स, नंबर ऑफ थिएटर्स एट ईयर एंड. नाउ इन्वेस्टमेंट. अच्छा. नाउ सी, if you end up breaching the debt covenant, then you will get 2 years to rectify the situation, or the amount will have to be repaid in full. Correct? Amount will have to be repaid in full. Now tell me, is that a see, because of this situation, there is a possibility that items in the financial statements will be manipulated. Risk of material misstatement hai. But is it also a business risk? Ki you will have to repay the entire loan amount.
Yes, sir.
है ना? Why? Because if that happens, see, you have 458 million का loan outstanding. If this situation happens, if it falls below 6%, you have to repay entire 458. And when you repay entire 458, तो क्या होगा? You might not have enough cash, and it might lead to a going concern crisis. Business बंद पड़ेगा. So definitely, the breaching of the debt covenant and withdrawal of finance is a major business risk. ठीक है. When you are making rough notes, give a heading: breach of debt covenant and repayment and withdrawal of finance. ऐसे just write it in short. Rough notes, very important. I'll write, I mean, मैं सब लिखूंगा, but these are things that I want you to get used to. ठीक है. Now, upgrades and maintenance. The group has a 5-year program to address the significant amount of repair and maintenance in its theatre portfolio. The group does not currently have finance in place to cover the cost of this 5-year program and is likely to be reliant on obtaining funding through government grant. During the year, so currently group does not have finance in place to cover the cost of the 5-year program of repair and maintenance. Government grant ही लेना है. During the year, group spent 20 million on repair and upgrade to 2 theatre. This included the replacement of seating and creation of easy access seating areas in addition to routine maintenance. Permission to modify the building was not obtained prior to the work taking place, and group are in the process of trying to obtain retrospective permission for these modifications. Now, they have mentioned that permission from appropriate regulatory authority will only be given if the historical features are retained. In past, regulatory authority has taken legal action where these rules have not been adhered to. ठीक है. यहाँ पे you have not taken the permission from your relevant authorities, है ना? You have not taken permission from the relevant authorities. What problem do you think it can create for you?
Legal action
Have
might
to
be
pay
taken
tax
with
to and penalties and
penalties.
compromise on the reputation.
Reputation is not such a big problem here. The bigger problem is that if you have made changes without permission, then you will invite legal action, and that legal action might involve risk of theater closure, and that has an impact on cash flow and profitability. Correct? So, heading though, modification without permission, dash, theater closure, dash, cash flow and profit impacted. Write that in the rough note. So two business risks we have identified. It is an 8 mark question. ठीक है. Now ठीक है. अब ये देखो, गवर्नमेंट ग्रांट. A 15 million grant has been provided with respect to a 3-year project where the group will work with local schools. The funding runs from April 5 to March 8 and payments are made annually on April 1 each year. The group has recognized income of 2.5 million during the year in respect of this grant. As part of the terms of the grant, the group has targets for hours spent in local school and the number of children who participate. The employee running this scheme on behalf of the group has been absent from work due to sickness and as such the program has yet to commence. कुछ IAS 20 का याद आ रहा है आपको?
Yes.
When do you recognize government grant? When it is reasonably certain that the grant will be received and conditions relating to the grant are fulfilled. One of the conditions relating to the grant is you have to spend those many hours and you have to ensure children participation. आपको पैसा तो मिल गया है, but have you fulfilled the conditions relating to the grant? Very clearly no, because this one employee who was supposed to run the scheme is not present. वो छुट्टी पे है. Correct? So do you believe that this is a reason why the condition is not fulfilled? And if condition is not fulfilled, then that is not your money and you might be asked to repay that money. Do you agree?
Yes.
Also, there is a possibility that you might not get grants in the future if the conditions are not fulfilled. जो मिला है वो भी वापस करना पड़ेगा. Plus, there is a possibility that you will not get grant in the future if you have been unable to fulfill the conditions relating to the grant. ठीक है. So make a note. Government grant, conditions not fulfilled. And it's big money, na? $2.5 million is big money. Written. See, business risk mein what did I tell you? Anything that might lead to closure of the business. Anything that might harm the reputation of the company. Anything which will lower sales suddenly or which will cut short your cash flows or sudden increase in cost हो सकता है. All of these are business risk. ठीक है. Now एक minimum ticket sale guarantee है. ठीक है. A production at the group's Phantom Theatre has suffered poor reviews and ticket sales to date have been significantly lower than projected. This production was due to run for a 12-month period from 1st of Jan 2005 to 31st of December. The group provided a minimum ticket sales guarantee to the third-party production company of 18 million. The finance director has estimated a payment of 4.5 million will be required based on the current estimate of ticket sales to 31st of December. This assumes that ticket sales in the second half of the year will improve significantly over the level of ticket sales made during the first 6 months. The finance director advised that he will include this as a provision in the financial statements at the year end. इधर क्या प्रॉब्लम है? They have provided minimum ticket income guarantee to production company. Now, if the production company fails to achieve these amounts because of poor ticket sales, as has happened in the past, the group will be required to make payments under these contracts, है ना? सो मैं बोल रहा हूँ किसी कंपनी को, अरे मेरे पास 100 बच्चे एनरोल करेंगे ट्रिपल ए के लिए, राइट? इतना इनकम बुक कर लो. एंड इफ दैट नंबर इज नॉट अचीव्ड आई विल हैव टू पे यू अ सर्टन अमाउंट. Now imagine cash flow impact, P&L impact, right? And that means cash outflow, profits get lowered, and with a company which is standing so much on the edge, that can also spell as some sort of a, again, एग्जिस्टेंशियल क्राइसिस हो सकता है. सो अगेन मिनिमम टिकट सेल्स गारंटी ऑल्सो क्रिएट्स अ बिजनेस रिस्क. 4.5 अमाउंट भी इंपॉर्टेंट है. एंड द फैक्ट दैट it will involve such significant cash outflows, that is also a problem. ठीक है. Now, goodwill calculation. On 1st of October, Hart Company, the parent, acquired a 100% holding in Morton, a small theatre company which owns and operates three established theatres. This is the first time Hart has purchased another company, and the transaction was completed very quickly. No final due diligence report in respect of Morton Company's financial and operational viability was prepared. Morton Company will be audited by Broadway and Co. Then they have shown you goodwill calculation. Tell me, any business risk that you see here in acquisition of Morton?
Since the
No due
acquisition,
diligence.
yeah, since the
No due
acquisition
diligence.
is done quickly, the acquired company, the modern company, could be involved in some money laundering or criminal activities, and we are going to be a part of it eventually.
Okay. Anyone else?
So it is the first time that the Hart company has involved in purchasing of acquisition of another company.
Hmm.
And because of the point that no due diligence was done, also adds to the point that it may be a wrong choice.
Okay. Fair enough.
So, the company was acquired right on the first day, so it has to be included for the entire duration.
Hmm.
And since this is a first acquisition, there can be over overestimation in fair value assumptions, and the goodwill may also
I'll
be
stop
over
you
or
right there.
undervalued.
I'll stop you right there. The risks that you are describing are risks of material misstatement. आप financial statement values के बारे में बात कर रहे हो. Goodwill under or overvalued. Fair value not estimated correctly. These are financial statement entries. That is risk of material misstatement. मैं business risk का बात कर रहा हूँ. Another thing, Harsha. Uh, they will be involved in criminal money laundering activities. इतने दूर का क्राइम पेट्रोल सीधा. Think about the what is the first thing that should come to your mind? First thing that should come to your mind is कि यार did I pay too much because I did not have the DD report in place? अगर ड्यू डिलिजेंस रिपोर्ट होगा तो आई विल नो द करेक्ट वैल्यूएशन ऑफ द कंपनी. इफ आई स्पेंड एडिक्वेट टाइम फॉर ड्यू डिलिजेंस आई विल नो what is the company worth. Once I know what is the company worth, I can negotiate बोलो या जो भी बोलो, but with the due diligence report in place I can estimate the value of the company. If that is done quickly, business risk सबसे पहला ये है कि there is a possibility that the company is overvalued and I end up paying way more than what I'm supposed to pay. What you are saying is a problem. I'm not contesting that. But it is a distant problem. ठीक है. लिखेंगे उसके बारे में, but that is not the prime focus. Yes, Mayank.
Sir, I mean, with respect to due diligence, again, like you can also talk about synergies. Like it hasn't been evaluated if there will be enough post-acquisition synergy or, you know, the benefits of acquiring the company. If
Point बराबर है, but don't elaborate on that. Why? Because we are not writing an AFM answer where we are evaluating whether the merger is in your favor, right? ये एएफएम का आंसर है. जो आप बोल रहे हो बात बराबर है, बट जस्ट मेंशनिंग दैट नॉट हैविंग द डीडी रिपोर्ट लीड्स टू इनकरेक्ट वैल्यूएशन. वैल्यूएशन के टाइम सिनर्जीज एंड एवरीथिंग इज इंक्लूडेड. वॉट यू आर सेइंग इज नॉट रॉन्ग, इट्स परफेक्टली फाइन, बट दैट वुड टैंटामाउंट टू ओवर एक्सप्लेनेशन. वो जो पॉइंट आप बोल रहे हो वो एएफएम का फोकस है. ठीक है. यहाँ पे हर्षा, द पॉइंट दैट यू आर मेंशनिंग इज एन एसबीएल फोकस. ये भी हो सकता है, वो भी हो सकता है, बहुत कुछ हो सकता है, कुछ भी हो सकता. हियर इट्स ऑडिट रिलेटेड है ना. तो वी हैव टू पुट दोज ब्लाइंडर्स व्हेन वी आर राइटिंग द ट्रिपल ए पेपर. ये ब्लाइंडर्स रखो. जो डेटा लिखा है वही फॉलो करो. एंड सी देर इज नथिंग रॉन्ग इन मेकिंग अजम्पशंस. ओके. बट ऑलवेज मेक See, whenever you make too many assumptions, na, you move away from facts of the case. तो मिनिमम पॉसिबल assumptions या रियलिस्टिक assumptions करो. The more assumptions you make, the more unrealistic you become. You remember Modigliani and Miller? 500 assumptions and the theory becomes pointless, right? So the same thing applies here. Yes, Trisha.
So in short, we'll write that there is a significant risk, and there might be unknown possibilities that the audit team has not yet considered because there's no due diligence. And we'll write in short only.
It's not a situation of no due diligence. The situation is due diligence final report आपको नहीं मिला था. हुआ है. Your point is right, but don't write no DD because that means something completely different. है ना?
It's written that they are going to produce consolidated financial statements for the first time. So can we
No.
include this
No.
point that the company, the
Why
management
not?
may not have? No.
Why not? Because that is a risk of material misstatement. Na? The moment you go to financial statements ka problem, you are talking about problems at the FS level or problems at the assertion level. What Seher was describing, goodwill calculation में problem है. That is misstatement at the assertion level. जो आप बोल रहे हो कि CFS गलत हो सकता है, that is problem at the financial statement level. हमारे business risk के problems नहीं है. Business risk is four things. Will the business shut down? Did we pay too much? Did we receive too less? Is our reputation at stake? Is our sales going down? ये आपको लिखना है यहाँ पे. अप्रोच आपका उस एंगल से होना चाहिए. द पॉइंट्स दैट यू आर डिस्क्राइबिंग आर एकदम परफेक्ट पॉइंट्स बट फॉर अ डिफरेंट आंसर. रिस्क ऑफ मटेरियल मिसस्टेटमेंट में जाएगा, इधर नहीं आएगा. ठीक है. एंड अच्छा, इवेल्युएट द सिग्निफिकेंट बिजनेस रिस्क. So when they say evaluate significant business risk, try to write the risks in the descending order of significance. सबसे significant risk first and then you go down. ठीक है. Now if you observe, यहाँ पे the cash consideration paid was 22 million. Excuse me, deferred consideration का PV ले लिया 8.3 million. This seems like the most significant problem to me, right? Overpaying when it comes to this is a far bigger problem than समथिंग लाइक मिनिमम टिकट सेल्स गारंटी. ये तो 4.5 मिलियन वाला पेमेंट दिख रहा है. यहाँ पे तो आपने 30.3 मिलियन पे कर दिया. करेक्ट. सो right now what I'm doing is I'm giving you the structure of the answer. I'm not talking about the presentation. Please keep that in mind. मैं आपको आज प्रेजेंटेशन नहीं दिखा रहा हूं. हाउ द आंसर विल बी फ्रेम्ड वील सी इन वेंसडेज क्लास. ठीक है. सो आई एम ओनली टॉकिंग अबाउट द पॉइंट्स. Evaluation of significant business risk. ठीक है. अब आई एम गिविंग यू अ नोट हियर. What qualifies as business risk? Anything that can lead to closure of business. ठीक है. Anything that can harm the reputation. ठीक है. Anything that can lead to decline in sales and cash flow. Anything that leads to sudden increase in cost. Anything that can cause sudden slash unexpected cash outflow. अगर इसमें से कुछ होगा तो दैट इज बिजनेस रिस्क. ठीक है. और एनीथिंग दैट stops the company from achieving its objectives. ठीक है. अब significant business risk में the first thing that I will talk about is acquisition of Merton company. ठीक है. So acquisition of Merton, let me call it first time acquisition. Let me call it नहीं, वो है ही first time acquisition. It's not as if I am calling it that. ठीक है. Now, first acquisition during the year. What is the risk? First time acquisition. Then a transaction completed quickly. No final DD report in respect of financial and operational viability was prepared. ठीक है. Transaction done quickly. No final due diligence report was obtained. इससे क्या होगा? The issue is that the company, you might not have evaluated the viability of the proposal from all angles. है ना? Viability of acquisition from all perspectives not checked. ठीक है. Might not be able to, maybe over optimistic assumptions. Over optimistic assumptions कर लिया आपने. Then unable to get expected return on investment. Possibility that company overpaid to acquire the target. Right? Then what else?
Sir, the acquired company might have poor reputation in the market.
Right? Poor reputation and unexpected issues or liabilities might be there with respect to the new business acquired. You have not done a proper DD, you have done it too quickly. So, unexpected issues and liabilities might arise with respect to newly acquired business. है ना? Since proper DD report has not been obtained. ठीक है. ये हो गया acquisition of Morton Company. ठीक है. Then ये आपका सबसे significant business risk है. What was the first one that you wrote, but in business risk?
Insufficient maintenance operations to be done.
Insufficient what? Maintenance. What is this thing that you have written? ऐसा तो मैंने कुछ लिखने को नहीं बोला है.
Breach of debt
Breach
covenant.
of debt covenants. Breach of debt covenants and withdrawal of funding support. है ना? This is the second point. Write about the situation. Financed by venture capitalists. 458 million debt taken out of capacity of 500 million granted to the company. ठीक है. Then what else? Then mention कि there are many covenants. The biggest one is operating profit margin should not fall below 6. Multiple covenants. Most significant one, operating profit margin should not fall below 6%. ठीक है. Now here operating profit margin was how much? It was 6.5%
6.2.
and 6.55% in 2004 and is projected to be 6.28% in 2005. So we are very close to the danger mark. A small increase in cost can lead to a breach of the debt covenant. Small increase in cost can lead to breach of debt covenant. ठीक है. Then write what happens if the debt covenant is breached. ठीक है. क्या होगा? और you will get 2 years to rectify or financing will be withdrawn. 2 years to rectify or financing support will be withdrawn. ठीक है. Then if financing is withdrawn, then payment of 458 million or more will have to be made in one go. ठीक है. And that is, that might lead to uh, existential crisis for the business. Might lead to closure of business. ठीक है. Makes sense. And see, I have not kept it generic. I'm relating it to facts of the case. Tell me the third one.
Modification without permission.
Modification of theater without permission. ठीक है. Yes, Seher, tell me.
So, are we writing these points as per their significance of risk, like in the sequential manner?
Yes, right now.
So, if the last point says that this in the second breach of debt, if the last point is that might lead to closure of business, means we are talking about going concern problems that might arise.
Hmm.
So, shouldn't this then become the first priority in the discussion?
But this is yet to occur. First time acquisition has already occurred. So right now that appears to be a bigger one to me. You can flip the order, not a problem. But the way I see it, first time acquisition का payment हो गया है. So you have already made a mistake and now you have to pay for it. You can still be careful about ensuring that you don't end up breaching the debt covenant. है ना? So वो हो सकता है, but yeah, order can be flipped, not a problem.
Okay, sir.
ठीक
Thank
है?
you.
Then modification of theater without permission. इससे क्या प्रॉब्लम होगा? So modification, renovation, repair needs permission from government. Hart company has done the modification without permission from government. In the past, government has done what? In the past, government has taken legal action where the rules have not been followed. Government has taken legal action where rules are not followed. So यहाँ पे होगा possibility of legal action against the company, fines and penalties possible, है ना? What else can go wrong?
Risk of theater closures.
Risk of theater closure. This can have a much larger impact, by the way. But see, ये correct order as in highest to lowest वाला जो है, that becomes more important when the question mentions the word prioritize. When the question says prioritize, then you go from highest to lowest. But in this case, they are only talking about significant, so only listing the risk also is enough. But when the word is prioritize, in that case, of course, the order of writing the risk becomes very, very important. ठीक है, ये हो गया modification of theater without permission. What else? What was the next one that we wrote?
Government grant.
Government grant conditions not fulfilled.
Government grants condition not fulfilled. First of all, write down the conditions that must be fulfilled. Then mention that it has not been fulfilled. Describe the risk. Then mention what can be the consequences. Might require repayment of the grant, might not get grants in the future if the company does not comply. Then what else? अच्छा, एक वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट था, कहाँ पे था? द कंपनी रिलाइज ऑन ग्रांट्स लिखा था ना कहीं पे. The group does not currently have finance in place to cover the cost and it relies on obtaining funding through government grants. And mention that company is heavily reliant on the grants, है ना, for repair work. So it can be a bigger problem, right? एक और पॉइंट था. What was that? Yes, Trisha?
Sir, can we give reference to IAS 20 year?
No, because वो क्यों नहीं देना है? Because when you do that, you are talking about the fact that a grant has been. IAS 20 talks about recognition criteria. So what you are trying to say if you give reference to IAS 20 is कि company recognize the grant when it should not have recognized the grant, right? है ना? And then what does that mean? That means कि you have included some item in the financial statement which should not be included. And if that is the case, then आपके financial statements में there is a material misstatement. Correct? वो यहाँ का point नहीं है. I spoke about IAS 20, but we are not supposed to write IAS 20. ठीक है? Okay. Now, एक है आपका minimum ticket guarantee. See, today I'm not even focusing on how to write that one line description. Today I'm just focusing your attention on identifying कि what is a business risk, what is a risk of material misstatement. Next question में हम देखेंगे कि इसको फ्रेम कैसे करना है. ठीक है? Can you explain the minimum ticket guarantee वाला problem? Can you explain that problem to me? ठीक है. So first of all, explain the minimum ticket guarantee arrangement. Then write what happens if the minimum guaranteed numbers are not achieved. ठीक है. What happens if the minimum guaranteed numbers are not achieved? Mention that. ठीक है? As in, explain the situation first, then we'll have to make payments to the to the to the theater production group. Cash flow and costs both increase. Sounds fair? इसको elaborate कैसे करना है? That we'll discuss. अच्छा, one more point. 4.5 million is based on projections, है ना? ये देखो तो projections में क्या प्रॉब्लम है? Ticket sales in the second half of the year will improve significantly over the level of ticket sales made during the 6 months to 30th June. So again, these seem to be based on unrealistic assumptions. So this amount might not be correct. Projections seem unrealistic. Might be required to pay an amount more than 4.5 million. है ना? So mention that. आप सारा कुछ उसमें cover कर रहे हो when you do this. You're not leaving out any detail. These are your business risk. अब your question to me should not be how many risks should we write. If the question is for 8 marks, try to cover all the relevant business risk. ठीक है, और एटलीस्ट 4 तो आपके होने ही चाहिए. मिनिमम 4 शुड बी देयर, बट इफ देयर आर अदर रिस्क विच आर सिग्निफिकेंट, मेक श्योर दैट यू इंक्लूड दोज ऑल्सो. ठीक है? आर यू विथ मी, ऑल ऑफ यू?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
ना? यस नेत्रा.
How should we prioritize business risk? Because it might be a subjective thing, you know.
What have they asked you to prioritize?
But like you are saying that we have to write in a descending order.
If the word prioritize is mentioned, only then, which they have done in the second part, है ना? वहां पे लिखा है evaluate and prioritize the significant risk of material misstatement to be considered in planning the group audit. यहाँ पे writing it in descending order of importance is going to fetch you the marks for commercial acumen. ठीक है?
Okay.
अब यहाँ पे अच्छा, they have told you to base the materiality on revenue. रेवेन्यू का materiality क्या levels है? Tell me.
0.5 to 1%.
0.5 to
5 to
1%.
1%. 0.5 if it is a high risk situation, 1% if that is not the situation. यहाँ पे it is an existing client, but this is the first year they are producing consolidated financial statements and you are the group auditor, which means risk of material misstatement automatically goes up because CFS बनाने का first year है, right? है ना? CFS produce करने का first year है, which means there are quite a lot of consolidation adjustments that will happen, and there is a possibility that you might end up messing those up, है ना? So that means the risk is high. Again, we'll set the materiality at the lower end of the spectrum. ठीक है? ये हो गया आपका materiality and justification of materiality. Part B, risk of material misstatement. Materiality with respect to sales, 0.5% to 1%. Calculate both. State that you are setting materiality at 0.5%. What is the justification? Client is an existing client. ठीक है? That means you are aware of control systems, have knowledge of business, etc. ठीक है? But This is the first year of preparing consolidated financial statements. So, risk of material misstatement is high. So, materiality is at lower end of spectrum. Give justification. Okay. And now we have to write about the risk of material misstatement. Okay. And what have they said? They have said don't consider the material misstatement relating to goodwill. वो मत consider करो. You have the exam kit with you, all of you. I'm giving you 5 to 6 minutes. Think about the risk of material misstatement. When you are thinking about that, keep your thought process clear. Whatever risk you describe, you have to tell me ki which item in the financial statement gets overstated or understated because of that. You can't just say that this is a risk of material misstatement. आपको मुझे बताना पड़ेगा which item in the financial statement gets understated or overstated. You have to describe each of those items. ठीक है? It's 9:15. I'm giving you 5 6 minutes. Evaluate, as in do your analysis. You have the exam kit. Then we'll discuss it together. ठीक है? Start. Let's talk about risk of material misstatement. Now, the group has, what did you identify as, the bigger risks of, matlab, where is the risk coming from? Trisha?
Sorry. So the risk can come from debt covenants, like the management has failed to meet the debt covenants requirement.
Okay. Because see, you are standing on the edge. Do you agree? आप एकदम एज पे खड़े हो तो क्या हो सकता है? Is there a possibility of management bias or management manipulation happening?
Yes, so the management can manipulate amounts uh, so so that the level there's मतलब वो लोग the margins are below the targets.
Okay. Is margin the only covenant?
Also,
There are other covenants, although those have not been quantified. ठीक है. अब मुझे ये बताओ, बेस्ड ऑन दिस डेटा, व्हाट इज द ग्रोथ इन रेवेन्यू? कितना परसेंटेज ग्रोथ है?
21.5.
21.5%. Covenants cover several KPIs in relation to liquidity, revenue growth. So there must be some covenant with respect to revenue growth. कितना आपने प्रोजेक्शन कितना डाला है? 21.5%. हाउ मच? सी, रेवेन्यू is related to number of theaters. By what percentage has the number of theaters grown?
6.3.
6.3%. So does that seem a little odd to you? That number of theaters has grown by 6.3%, but revenue has grown by 21.5%. है ना? So there is a possibility that there could be an overstatement of revenue. See, where possible, you should quantify the amount. यहाँ पे quantification possible नहीं है तो वैसे ही रखो उसको. ठीक है? Then operating profit has grown by how much percentage? 26 to 28 ग्रो हुआ है ना? बताइए परसेंटेज कितना होता है?
7.7.
7.6.
7.6. So revenue has grown, sorry, operating profit has grown by 7.6%. Is that right? Revenue has grown by this percent, or operating profit has grown by 7.6%. Again, man, acha, operating profit margin has fallen down, which means you are again standing on the edge. देखो, टेल मी 6% कितना आएगा? 446 million का, टेल मी 6% कितना है?
26.7.
26.7.
अभी 28 है. ठीक है. एंड आपका सेंसिटिव नंबर कितना है 26.7. सो बाय व्हाट वैल्यू, इफ द प्रॉफिट फॉल्स बाय व्हाट वैल्यू विल द covenant get breached?
1.24.
1.24. Again, quite possible that the management will interfere in this number also, because one small increase in cost and everything comes crashing down. So there is an increased risk that management may manipulate the financial statement so that costs are understated or other income from grants is overstated. Correct? Now, dependence on debt finance for continued operation is critical, and if you don't achieve that, you could end up in a problem. ठीक है. अब इसको let's see how to describe this or how to put it together here. What should be the heading? Breach of debt covenants. Breach of debt covenants and possible management bias. You are writing to the partner. Don't explain what is a debt covenant, but write down what all covenants are included. कौन से covenants है? Revenue growth है, blah blah blah. ठीक है. Then mention that one such covenant is revenue growth. Then write how revenue has grown by 21.5%. ठीक है. Revenue is closely influenced by number of theaters. ठीक है. Number of theaters has grown by कितना परसेंट था? 6 की 3 कितना था? 6%.
6.3%.
6.3.
Has grown by 6.3%. So there is a possibility. So possibility of overstatement of revenue in order to uh, achieve the debt covenant target. Yes, Mr. Arora, tell me.
Revenue grown by 12.3%.
Revenue has grown by 12.3.
Yes, sir.
390. कहाँ से आया आपका 4 12.3?
446 minus 397 divided by 397.
हाँ, ये तो 12.3 है. आपने मुझे किसी ने 21 बता दिया. कैसे आया 21, त्रिशा?
सर,
हम्म.
मैंने तो प्रोजेक्टेड रेवेन्यू को इसके साथ देखा था, फिनेंसिंग अमाउंट.
फाइनेंसिंग
मैंने एक्चुअल के साथ नहीं किया था, तो
नहीं, आपने किसके साथ कंपेयर किया था?
सर फिनेंसिंग अमाउंट मतलब जो 6% का लेके फिगर आउट किया था.
नहीं, एक्चुअली वी शुडंट डू इट दैट वे. 6% आपने किस पे कैलकुलेट किया टू अराइव एट दिस?
सर विल चेक एंड लेट यू नो द
ठीक
स्पेसिफिक.
है. सी मतलब प्रॉब्लम है इन द सेंस कि थिएटर्स हैव ग्रोन बाय 6 पॉइंट समथिंग परसेंट एंड रेवेन्यू हैज स्टिल ग्रोन बाय 12.34%. तो वो इशू है. So, हाँ, but numbers have to be correct when you are stating the numbers. Quantification is very important. ठीक है. Then operating profit has grown by dash percentage. Operating profit margin in 2004 is 6.5% and in 2005 projected is 6.28%. ठीक है. Decrease in operating profit कितना था भाई? 1.3 मिलियन बोला ना आपने? By
1.24.
1.24 million will lead to fall in operating profit by and operating profit margin will fall below 6%, thereby triggering the debt covenant. है ना? अब इतना छोटा सा रेंज में आप खेल रहे हो. So that increases the risk that management may manipulate the financial statement so that costs are understated or other income from grants is overstated. So increased risk that costs are understated or revenue from grants is overstated. ये अंडरस्टेट ओवरस्टेट जब तक आप नहीं लिखोगे यू विल नॉट गेट फुल मार्क्स. वो जो हम गुड आंसर बैड आंसर वाला एनालिसिस करेंगे ना, उसमें ये you will see ACCA mentioning this कि ये लिखो. If you don't write it, you will end up losing half of mark. फिर you start crying कि अरे मुझे उतना marks नहीं मिला जितना I should have gotten. ठीक है. This is about breach of debt covenants and possible management bias. ठीक है. Let's talk about, अभी इधर बात करते हैं त्रिशा, आपने जो IAS 20 बोला था वो देखो. 15 million grant has been given to you with respect to a 3-year project where the group will work with local schools. Funding period runs from April 5 to 31st of March 2008. And payments are made annually on 1st of April. Group has recognized income of 2.5 million. कैसे किया? 2.5 million April to September 6 महीना. ठीक है. Per total grant is 15 million, per annum grant is 5 million. You received 5 million at the start of the year. What the company did was, company recorded 2.5 million ka grant. Now you have to talk about IAS 20 ka requirement. It has to be, write down the conditions for recognition of grant, right? And then mention how that condition has not been fulfilled. Therefore, नाउ उसके सारे इफेक्ट्स आपको डिस्क्राइब करना पड़ेगा. ग्रांट 2.5 मिलियन शुड नॉट हैव बीन recognized but has been recognized. That means, first thing, income is overstated. That means loss is understated. Company is in a loss, correct? Income is overstated, loss is understated. And again, that, see, and the amount is 2.5 million. अपना डेंजर मार्क क्या है? 1.24 मिलियन ना. तो 2.5 मिलियन से अज्यूम करो इनकम गोज डाउन, इमीडिएटली योर प्रॉफिट, ऑपरेटिंग प्रॉफिट परसेंटेज विल फॉल बिलो 6%. हो गया डेट कॉवेनेंट ब्रीच. क्वाइट अ सिग्निफिकेंट रिस्क ऑफ मटेरियल मिसस्टेटमेंट. अगेन मटेरियल बाय नेचर, करेक्ट. अमाउंट से तो है ही मटेरियल, बट व्हाई एम आई सेइंग इट इज मटेरियल बाय नेचर? बिकॉज दिस पर्टिकुलर अमाउंट, उसमें एरर immediately triggers a lot of other problems for the company, right? So that point. Now let's discuss government grants. ठीक है. Now, first of all, describe the situation, grant conditions, payment, not payment dates, etc. Then write down conditions under IAS 20 which are to be fulfilled for recognition of government grant. ठीक है, conditions which have to be fulfilled for recognition of government grant, उसके बारे में लिखो. Then what else? State that conditions attached to the grant are not fulfilled. So, company should not have recognized income from government grant worth 2.5 million. ठीक है, should not have recognized income from government grant worth 2.5 million. Company recognized the income even when conditions are not fulfilled. ठीक है, so income overstated, loss understated. If this income is not recorded, then operating profit margin will fall below 6%. ठीक है, triggering the debt covenant. So, which means again highly material, right? अभी आपको see here I am specifically talking about those items which find a place in the financial statements and I am quantifying the amount in each case. Quantification and impact both are important. Your answer with respect to risk of material misstatement is never complete unless you talk about the impact, understatement or overstatement. ठीक है, उसके लिए आपको स्पेसिफिकली अलग से मार्क मिलेगा इन द पेपर. ओके, नाउ what other issue do you see here? ओ अच्छा, वन मोर आइटम. इनकम ओवरस्टेटेड, लॉस अंडरस्टेटेड. डेफर्ड इनकम भी तो गड़बड़ है ना. डेफर्ड इनकम शुड बी 15 million, नाउ यू हैव मेड इट 2.5 million. सो डेफर्ड इनकम अंडरस्टेटेड. ठीक है, नाउ व्हाट एल्स इज देयर? इधर देखो, group spent 20 million on repair and upgrade of theaters, replacement of seating and creation of easy access seating areas in addition to routine maintenance. The reason I came here is यहाँ पे amount mentioned है. जहाँ पे amount mentioned है, it triggers the thought in my head कि यार इधर risk of material misstatement हो सकता है. What can be a problem area here?
So the capital expenditures and operating expenditures may not be bifurcated correctly.
Hmm.
20 million is anyways above the threshold of materiality.
Hmm.
And it can be so that the capital expenditure and operating expenditures are not correctly bifurcated, which can have an impact on the financial statements, causing the expenses to be understated,
Hmm.
and thereby, accordingly, this will have an impact on the financial position statement also, uh, leading to understatement of value of assets. And if the value of assets is understated, accordingly, depreciation will also be understated, which will then again have an impact on the statement of
Fair
P&L.
enough. Fair enough. Good point. ठीक है.
The assets will be overstated, right?
If you capitalize incorrectly, see, if you capitalize full 20 million, तो overstate भी हो सकता है, understate भी हो सकता है, depending on how much you capitalize. If you capitalize, instead of capitalizing 10, if you capitalize 20, then overstate. instead of capitalizing 10, if you capitalize 5, then understate, है ना? So let's talk about that. So upgrade and maintenance cost, ठीक है? Amount of upgrade and maintenance cost is 20 million, well above materiality threshold, ठीक है? The issue is incorrect classification of cost into capex and revenue expenditure, correct? Now write down which costs should be capitalized and which should be expensed off. यहाँ पे basically I want you to write down the rule and correlate that with facts of the case, ठीक है? Then expense understated and assets overstated. यहाँ पे you know what the bigger problem is? The problem is, see, they are trying to keep the operating profit margin above 6%. So ये लोग एक्सपेंस को कम रखेंगे कि ज्यादा, मतलब व्हाट आर दे लाइकली टू डू? दे आर लाइकली टू अंडरस्टेट द एक्सपेंस, राइट? Both is possible. Real life में expense can be understated also, expense can be overstated also. ये situation में what has a higher likelihood of happening? They want to keep the
Understated.
understated, expense understated and asset overstated, and then further risk related to depreciation. Now, just a point, expenses can be overstated slash understated in most circumstances. Both possibilities are there. ठीक है? But in this case, company is trying to ensure that operating profit margin does not fall below 6%. So, most likely to understate expense. Make sense? ठीक है? अब इधर ये गवर्नमेंट ग्रांट हो गया, गुडविल कैलकुलेशन डालने को मना किया है, ठीक है? अपग्रेड एंड मेंटेनेंस हो गया, ऑपरेटिंग प्रॉफिट मतलब इधर का हो गया, डेट कॉवेनेंट रिलेटेड. एनी मिसस्टेटमेंट दैट इज पॉसिबल विथ रिस्पेक्ट टू मिनिमम टिकट सेल्स गारंटी?
Yes, sir. The finance director has advised that he will create provision for the estimated payment to be made. So provisions would be overstated by 4.5 million.
Now, see, it is made now, whatever the calculation is, the management must have made certain assumptions and estimates while doing these calculations. Now, the estimate may be subject to a significant uncertainty and he can make overly optimistic judgments, है ना? Because he wants to basically avoid that situation of making the payment to the counterparty. Because if he does that, if he creates a provision, naturally there is an expense. If there is an expense, naturally your operating profit margin will fall down. And देखो आप carefully, he has made, he has estimated the tickets in the second half of the year that they will improve significantly over the level of ticket sales made in the first 6 months. So again, is there a basis to support that assumption? Ki, I often say this when people say ki, especially it happens, in my setup often, कि अरे इस बार ना पास परसेंटेज एफआर में लास्ट एक अटेम्प्ट में अगर 30 है तो 60 हो जाएगा. आई सेड ऐसा क्या डिफरेंट हो रहा है लाइफ में? Nothing. Student is the same, faculty is the same, FR paper is the same, circumstances are the same. तो 30 का 35 मे बी, बट 30 का 60 नहीं हो सकता ना. कैसे होगा? If faculty is the same, syllabus is the same, student level is the same, nothing has changed, how can the outcome be different? Outcome can't be different. Now, people fail to understand this as a different problem altogether. But do you agree the same thing applies here also? ऐसा क्या बदल रहा है सेकंड हाफ में कि सडनली यू आर सेइंग दैट योर सेल्स रेवेन्यू इज गोइंग टू डबल? Very difficult, not double, but whatever it is, it's very difficult to make sense of that, right? And they haven't mentioned कि यार there are some great cyclical changes coming your way. ऐसा तो कुछ mentioned है नहीं. So naturally those assumptions don't seem to be reasonable at all. Do you agree? चलो. Minimum ticket guarantee. ठीक है. When I'm talking about minimum ticket guarantee, first thing that you will do is you will explain the guarantee situation in brief. ठीक है. Then now you go into depth. Then state what assumptions have been made by the management. ठीक है. What assumptions have been made by the management while calculating 4.5 million? Estimate may be subject to significant uncertainty. Estimate may be subject to significant uncertainty. ठीक है. Overtly optimistic assumptions might have been made partially to prevent trigger of the debt covenant. So, expense understated, liability understated. Make sense? Are you with me?
Yes.
Expense understated. उसके साथ ना ये भी लिख दो, loss understated. And liability is also understated. See, everywhere I'm talking about what is understated, what is overstated. If you don't do that, you stand to lose marks. Huh? तो ये आपको, सी इस पे आपको 1 मार्क मिलेगा, इस पे 1 मार्क मिलेगा. मटीरियलिटी एंड जस्टिफिकेशन, you get 1.5 to 2 marks on that part. Now description of the risk fetches you half a mark. Explanation, quantification of the risk and stating understatement, overstatement fetches you more marks. So I'm giving you a tip here. Tip to score marks in risk of material misstatement. State the risk in one line. At the top, then describe the risk in 2 to 3 lines. Quantify the impact on financial statements. Calculate the number and state that it is material. Then talk about what is understated and what has been overstated. ये आपको when you do this, you are assured of one basic level of marks in the risk of material misstatement question. इतना तो आपको हर आंसर में लिखना है whenever the question is about risk of material misstatement. Now, the reason why I call AAA an extremely predictable paper is because of this reason. कि क्या लिखना है और कितना लिखना है ये पता है. Think of I'm not sure how many of you have written SBL, but SBL में थोड़ा सा it gets a little more vague, right? You don't know where to start, where to stop sometimes. But in questions like these, in compare that with another theory paper, APM. I'm not sure how many of you have done or are doing or want to do that paper. Again, APM again is not so well structured as a subject and as an exam. AAA is very clearly structured. It will always be business risk, risk of material misstatement, audit risk for minimum 20 marks. Then procedure and then something else. So आपको exactly क्या आने वाला है पता है ना? Now we do 4 section A questions together. You redo those 4 questions and you do 3 more questions and you have 20 more days. Don't you think that should give you enough confidence कि what all can be asked in the paper and how do you tackle that? है ना? आपका सारा strength वहां से आने वाला है. The strength of your answer. Now, even within that, see APM, SBL, even for that matter, SBR, AFM में भी what can get asked in the question can change from paper to paper ना. They say question on risk management is possible in AFM जो हर पेपर में आता है, but it can be interest rate risk also, forex risk also, और उसमें भी कुछ भी हो सकता है ना, कॉलर भी हो सकता है, ऑप्शंस ऑन आईआरएफ भी हो सकता है. इधर क्या है, इधर पता है ना कि सिर्फ बिजनेस रिस्क, रिस्क ऑफ मटेरियल मिसस्टेटमेंट, ऑडिट रिस्क यही पूछने वाले हैं. प्रायोरिटाइज करने को ही बोलेंगे. प्रायोरिटाइज करने का सीक्वेंस भी अपने को मतलब विल गेट टू दैट पॉइंट वेरी वेरी सून. प्रोसीजर्स आएगा ही आएगा. एक्टिविटी यही करना है, यही सीक्वेंस आने वाला है पेपर में. मटीरियलिटी अगेन अनदर टिप. In 95% of the papers, materiality will have to be set at the lower end of the spectrum. In most papers. Not a thumb rule, but mostly that is what is happening. तो अगर पेपर इतना predictable है, तो what is the challenge? The challenge is you are listening to what a lot of people on LinkedIn are saying, or you are listening to what a lot of in general borderline idiots are saying. Please don't do that. That is that it is, I'm telling you again, it is meant to scare you so that you buy someone's course, right? Or you pay 1000 rupees to someone for mock correction. It is meant to do that. And today when we wrote the answer to business risk and risk of material misstatement, एक बार बताना तो कौन सा chapter we thought about? Did we think about any specific chapter today? पूरा मैं 16 सितंबर से पढ़ा रहा हूं आपको. दुनिया भर की बातें कर ली. टुडे व्हेन वी आर फ्रेमिंग द आंसर, सी इन एएफएम और एसबीआर और एटीएक्स वी आर लाइक हाँ ओके, पेंशंस, दिस चैप्टर, दिस प्रोविजन, दिस इज. डिड आई इवन आस्क यू टेल मी विच चैप्टर इज दिस फ्रॉम? इवन इन एसबीएल आई आस्क यू ना कि अरे बताओ ये कौन से चैप्टर से, राइट? कुछ तो आपको आता है. यहाँ पे यू आर आंसरिंग क्वेश्चन सोली ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ कॉमन सेंस, राइट? एंड योर अंडरस्टैंडिंग ऑफ बिजनेस रिस्क. मैंने आपको टिप लिख के दिया है कि भाई बिजनेस रिस्क होगा तो दीज 4-5 आइटम्स इफ दे आर प्रेजेंट दैट मेक्स इट अ बिजनेस रिस्क. दीज 3-4 आइटम्स इफ दे आर, इफ यू राइट दीज यू विल गेट मार्क्स इन रिस्क ऑफ मटेरियल मिसस्टेटमेंट. तो कितना ज्यादा प्रेडिक्टेबिलिटी है आपके पेपर में, राइट? द ओनली थिंग इज प्रैक्टिस. अभी we have been at it for the last almost 2 hours now. The answer is not complete. It will take time. I'll do that in the next class. Don't worry. But I want you to now get used not today, maybe by end of this week, I want you to get used to the idea of how to frame answers on risk of material misstatement and business risk. Procedures, I know some of you have challenges in procedures, I'll take care of that. ठीक है, बट रिस्क इज अ बिगर एलिमेंट इन द पेपर एज कंपेयर टू प्रोसीजर्स. प्रोसीजर 7 to 8 मार्क्स का आएगा, रिस्क 20 to 25 मार्क्स का आएगा. दैट इज वेयर योर फर्स्ट फोकस शुड गो. बाकी का थिंग्स विल फॉल इन प्लेस. वॉट वी आर गोइंग टू डू ऑन वेंसडे इज, जो सेकंड पार्ट ऑफ द क्वेश्चन है, आई वॉन्ट यू टू ट्राई इट ऑन योर ओन, गुडविल वाला पार्ट, देन आई डिस्कस इट विथ यू, डोंट वरी, मैं पूरा लिख के दूंगा आपको. आफ्टर दैट वील स्पेंड टाइम ऑन गुड आंसर बैड आंसर, बेसिकली रीडिंग द माइंड ऑफ द ट्रिपल ए मार्कर. वील स्पेंड टाइम ऑन दैट. थियोरी पेपर में ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट एक्टिविटी है. वॉट फेचेज यू मार्क्स एंड वॉट लीड्स टू लॉस ऑफ मार्क्स. एक बार वो हो जाएगा, देन फ्राइडे को वील गो टू अ थर्ड क्वेश्चन. यस त्रिशा, टेल मी.
Sir, so in triple A we'll start with section A first, right? क्योंकि बाकी के papers में section B.
नो, नो, वी आर नॉट कमेंटिंग ऑन दैट येट. We'll come to that point. Right now, we are not commenting on that. Yes, Vatsal.
Mm, hello, am I like audible, sir, clearly?
Yeah, very, very clearly.
Okay. So I just had a one basic question that actually I have completed my study kit. I'm going to shift towards the exam kit. So my
Hmm.
question is that is there a like set of some question that we have to pursue the that question like touches different example or is it fine if we just try to like practice the question after 2020 or 2021?
I would say 18-19 के बाद के questions you can try. And one tip I will give you specifically with respect to section A. Do 8 section A questions and you are sorted. You can't get section A wrong after that. बट
Sure.
ये वीक खत्म होने दो. अभी तक आई हैव delved into, अभी तक मैंने प्रेजेंटेशन कहाँ दिखाया है आपको? I haven't shown you presentation ना. I am only focusing on the technical bits right now. मैं presentation दिखाऊंगा, then you solve section A. And आज का क्या डेट है? 10th. By 18th you will say यार, you yourself will tell me to stop immediately कि नहीं बहुत हो
Sure.
गया सेक्शन है, अभी सेक्शन बी कराओ. That is what it will come down to. Trust me when I say that.
Sure, sure. So, like that was the basic question. Like, is it fine if I try to not like, practice but try to read and understand that what the
Yeah.
question is saying and how should we answer? And the
Yeah, yeah.
post 2020 question would be fine, right?
Post 2020 questions are fine. And for people who were in the regular batch also, so I think if you look at the recordings of the last quarter, Hammer, Encore, Mercurio, Winberry, ये 4 क्वेश्चन तो मैं हर बैच में कराता हूँ. तो अभी आपके इसमें आपको रिकॉर्डिंग में दिखेगा एंड ये मैं आपके साथ लाइव सॉल्व कर रहा हूँ. हार्ट लाइव करूंगा, मजेंटा लाइव करूंगा. आई चेक लास्ट क्वार्टर में क्या क्या कवर्ड है. ग्रूबर ऑल्सो, ग्रूबर, राइडर, मार्गो, आई पिक अप. सो 5 क्वेश्चंस फ्रॉम सेक्शन ए वी हैव टू डू. ठीक है, वील मीट ऑन वेंसडे नाउ. ठीक है, वेंसडे शाम को वील फिनिश द थर्ड पार्ट, विच बाय द वे आई वांट यू टू ट्राई. डोंट ट्राई द फोर्थ पार्ट, इट्स ओके, ट्राई द थर्ड पार्ट, गुडविल रिलेटेड जो है ना. एंड सी व्हेन यू आर फ्रेमिंग प्रोसीजर्स, कीप वन थिंग इन माइंड. पहले ना गुडविल का फॉर्मूला लिखो. ठीक है, उसमें व्हाट ऑल कैन गो रॉन्ग, सी व्हाट इज रिस्क, व्हाट ऑल कैन गो रॉन्ग. When you are framing procedures, always think about 2 things: financial statement assertion and risk involved. Inventory में क्या risk है? That inventory has actually uh, has become obsolete or outdated. ठीक है, inventory has become obsolete or outdated, which means the inventory should be written down, है ना. The risk is that the inventory is not written down even when it is obsolete. फिर ये रिस्क ऑफ मटेरियल मिस स्टेटमेंट में ऑटोमेटिकली कन्वर्ट होगा बाय स्टेटिंग द नंबर. एंड देन यू हैव टू फ्रेम अ प्रोसीजर. व्हाट इज द रिस्क? द रिस्क इज दैट द इन्वेंटरी इज आउटडेटेड एंड येट एनआरवी देन विल बिकम लोअर देन कॉस्ट. तो अभी आप प्रोसीजर कैसे फ्रेम करेंगे? आपका रिस्क है कि यार इन्वेंटरी का वैल्यू हैज फॉलन डाउन बट इट हैज नॉट बीन रिटन ऑफ. सो देन फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल यू विल हैव टू कैलकुलेट कॉस्ट एंड यू विल हैव टू कैलकुलेट एनआरवी. एनआरवी कैसे कैलकुलेट होगा? Write down estimated selling price, estimated cost to sell. How will you get evidence about that? It's about evidence gathering, right? तो आप evidence कैसे लेंगे? Try to find out the selling price or estimated selling price गेट अ सपोर्टिंग डॉक्यूमेंट, वी विल डिस्कस दैट, अभी तक हमने वो किया नहीं है। और इफ़ यू आर वेरीफाइंग कॉस्ट, कॉस्ट कैसे वेरीफाई करेंगे, यू विल नीड द कॉस्ट शीट। कॉस्ट शीट में क्या होगा, मटेरियल, लेबर, ओवरहेड होगा। मटेरियल कॉस्ट कैसे वेरीफाई करेंगे, परचेस इनवॉइस से वेरीफाई करेंगे। लेबर कॉस्ट कैसे वेरीफाई करेंगे, यू विल टेल द क्लाइंट गिव मी अ कॉपी ऑफ द अटेंडेंस रिकॉर्ड एंड टाइम शीट। फिर टाइम शीट में चेक करेंगे हाउ मेनी आवर्स वर स्पेंट ऑन मेकिंग द प्रोडक्ट, व्हाट इज द वेज ऑफ दिस पर्टिकुलर कस्टमर, सॉरी ऑफ दिस पर्टिकुलर एम्प्लॉय। फिर उसको यू विल डू द डेली मंथली कैलकुलेशन एंड यू विल अराइव एट द लेबर कॉस्ट। सो दैट इज हाउ वेरिफिकेशन ऑफ दैट आइटम विल हैपन. If, say, for example, the question says they want you to frame a procedure on goodwill, which they have asked you to do here. So when you are framing a question with respect to goodwill, तो अभी what is the formula for calculation of goodwill? Write that down. When you write that formula down, then think about कि यार इसमें what all ingredients are there. First is fair value of consideration paid. A fair value of consideration paid, say for example, is 20 million. तो ये 20 million कहाँ से evidence मिल सकता है? First source of that verifying whether actually 20 million was paid or not, look at the share purchase agreement, obtain a copy of that. Then उसको पूछो कि बैंक स्टेटमेंट में दिखाओ whether 20 million has been paid or not. ये क्वेश्चन में डेफर्ड कंसिडरेशन है, तो डेफर्ड कंसिडरेशन कहाँ पे होगा, डेफर्ड कंसिडरेशन विल बी इन द शेयर परचेस अग्रीमेंट, राइट. अब you go one step backward. Was the acquisition approved by, it will need an approval, right? So who will give that approval? Board of directors के मीटिंग में होना चाहिए. How do you know whether they have given that approval or not? Minutes of the meeting check करो, right? So all of these points go in deciding the procedure. See, what is procedure? Understand there is a certain risk or there is a certain financial statement assertion. What and how do you get evidence to support that assertion? अगर मेरा अजर्शन एग्जिस्टेंस है तो मैं जाके फिजिकल वेरिफिकेशन करूंगा. अगर मेरा अजर्शन डिस्क्लोजर है तो आई विल ask myself the question, what does IAS 24 related parties, what does it say about disclosures? It says talk about the nature of name of the related party, nature of relationship, quantum of transaction, closing balance. नाउ वेयर विल आई हाउ विल आई वेरीफाई द डिस्क्लोजर असर्शन? मैं ड्राफ्ट फाइनेंशियल्स लूंगा और उसका मैं डिस्क्लोजर नोट चेक करूंगा, राइट. इफ द क्वेश्चन इज से इन्वेस्टमेंट प्रॉपर्टी है, ठीक है, यू वांट टू वेरीफाई द वैल्यू ऑफ इन्वेस्टमेंट प्रॉपर्टी और यू वांट टू वेरीफाई बेसिकली द इन्वेस्टमेंट प्रॉपर्टी. तो आप क्या करेंगे, इन्वेस्टमेंट प्रॉपर्टी है कि नहीं ये कैसे वेरीफाई होगा? यू विल हैव टू गो टू दैट पर्टिकुलर लोकेशन, करेक्ट. यू विल हैव टू सी कि यार इधर प्रॉपर्टी है कि नहीं. दैट टॉक्स अबाउट एग्जिस्टेंस, ठीक है. देन टॉक अबाउट प्रॉपर्टी तो दिख रहा है बट इज इट योर प्रॉपर्टी? हाउ विल यू नो? यू विल हैव टू आस्क द क्लाइंट कि यार शो मी द टाइटल रजिस्ट्रेशन डीड, वो चेक करेंगे. देन say they have kept they are using the fair value model and they have kept the value at 40 million. तो fair value ऐसे चलते चलते तो आएगा नहीं ना. There has to be a registered valuer. Obtain a copy of the valuation report. See whether it is dated and signed. See whether the signing date is close to the balance sheet date. Correct. Then प्रॉपर्टी है, दिख रहा है, इट इज इन योर नेम, वैल्यूएशन रिपोर्ट इज देयर. हाउ डू यू डिटरमाइन वेदर इट इज एन इन्वेस्टमेंट प्रॉपर्टी? सी, प्रॉपर्टी कैन बी पीपीई ऑल्सो, प्रॉपर्टी कैन बी इन्वेस्टमेंट प्रॉपर्टी ऑल्सो. इन्वेस्टमेंट प्रॉपर्टी इज अ प्रॉपर्टी विच इज हेल्ड विथ एन इंटेंशन टू अर्न कैपिटल अप्रिसिएशन और अर्न रेंटल्स, करेक्ट. अब ये कैसे वेरीफाई होगा? प्रॉपर्टी में जाके देखो हु इज ऑक्यूपाइंग दैट प्रॉपर्टी. इज द क्लाइंट ऑक्यूपाइंग द प्रॉपर्टी और हैज ही गिवन इट ऑन रेंट? नॉट जस्ट दैट, आस्क फॉर अ कॉपी ऑफ रेंट अग्रीमेंट ऑल्सो. तो इससे वेरीफाई होगा कि ये इन्वेस्टमेंट प्रॉपर्टी है कि नहीं. देन प्रेजेंटेशन, इन्वेस्टमेंट प्रॉपर्टी का तो प्रेजेंटेशन इजी है ना रिलेटिवली, बिकॉज यू जस्ट हैव टू शो कि नॉन करंट असेट में इन्वेस्टमेंट प्रॉपर्टी दिखा दिया. बट अगर लोन का आइटम है, लोन के आइटम में एक तो हमेशा यू शुड राइट दैट पॉइंट, split of current and non-current liability, because even if it is a long term loan, amount payable within 12 months is current part, amount payable after 12 months is non-current part. अब ये कहाँ से वेरीफाई होगा? सपना तो आएगा नहीं, राइट. लिंक्डइन तो है नहीं इसका सोर्स, तो क्या सोर्स है? लोन अग्रीमेंट देखो ना, लोन अग्रीमेंट, लोन अमोर्टाइजेशन स्केड्यूल होता है, वहां पे लिखा रहेगा, इट विल बी रिटन वेरी क्लियरली, दीज आर द ड्यू डेट्स, दीज आर द पेमेंट्स. Payments within next 12 months current, payments after 12 months non-current. So put yourself in the shoes of an investigator here कि आई हैव बीन आस्क्ड टू वेरीफाई द करेक्टनेस ऑफ दिस आइटम, मैं कैसे वेरीफाई करूंगा? इट कुड बी एनीथिंग. सो एंड थिंक अबाउट द फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट असर्शंस. आपका व्हाट डू यू कॉल इट, क्या है, एग्जिस्टेंस हो गया, अकरेंस हो गया, जो भी assertions, एंड थिंक अबाउट द रिस्क. एंड इफ यू वांट टू सेफगार्ड योर सेल्फ, व्हाट एविडेंस विल यू गैदर सो दैट योर बॉस शुडेंट से तूने क्या देखा? बिकॉज इन सीए फर्म्स दिस इज वन लाइन यू गेट टू हियर द मोस्ट, तूने क्या देखा? तो मैंने ये देखा भाई, दिस इज वाई आई एम सेइंग कि दिस इज एन इन्वेस्टमेंट प्रॉपर्टी वर्थ 40 million. सो प्रोसीजर्स हैव टू बी फ्रेम्ड दैट वे. ठीक है. सो वेन यू आर फ्रेमिंग द प्रोसीजर्स फॉर द थर्ड पार्टनर, थिंक अबाउट इट कि हाउ एग्जैक्टली आर यू गोइंग टू फ्रेम द आंसर्स. ठीक है. चलो डोंट वरी, प्रोसीजर्स आर नॉट गोइंग टू बी अ डील ब्रेकर एंड वी हैव 20 days ना, बहुत सारा टाइम है अपने पास. ठीक है. आपके सारे आंसर्स आपको आज इवेल्युएट करके मिल जाएंगे, वॉट एवर यू हैव सेंट. एंड गाइज जस्ट मेक श्योर दैट यू आर अपडेटिंग द पोल, बिकॉज आई सेंड सम पोल ऑन द ग्रुप ना, हैव यू रिसीव्ड फीडबैक और नॉट. अच्छा एक और बात, फीडबैक कब मिलेगा? जब आपने, इफ यू हैव सेंट मी समथिंग देन यू विल गेट फीडबैक ना. आई सी पीपल फिलिंग इन अ नो. अरे when did you send me something to get a feedback? Now I have started introducing the not submitted option. Please pay attention here. And once you get the feedback, please update. Otherwise, see, I'm obsessive about getting that list. So please make sure that you update it.